Lesson number 51 and 7th lesson on the major line segment series. We are learning JavaScript and we are learning JavaScript by examples. And in this series, we are trying to recreate this application, which is available on this website here. This is the website. And what this application is, it has a number of images and a number of line segments, and students have to indicate the length of each line segment in these input fields. So this is what we have done so far. In the last lesson, we learned how to create these input fields, and we also learned how to make this cursor available in the first input field when the page is loaded. And we also learned how to show a response when a user types in an answer. So it says correct, and this is not a very professional way. So I will change this and I'll show you how to display the result in this input field. And the next issue that we want to deal today is that when you press enter, the cursor does not move into this input field. So this is what we are going to fix. So I will change the size of my browser, and we have our browser and the text editor side by side, and this is the code that we have written so far. So this is just one page that includes CSS, JavaScript, and HTML. This is for beginners. This is for students who do not know much about JavaScript. So I'm trying to make it as simple as possible for them. So we added this these lines of code here. This is the message that is responsible for displaying the alert when a user types in an answer. So I will get rid of it because this is not how it is done professionally. And I will say, if what we are doing here, if the key code, if the user presses the enter key, the key code 13 is for the enter key on the keyboard, and the result dot value, the number that has been typed in by the user is equal to this variable, which is responsible for creating the length of these line segments. And this variable has been defined here, which is generating numbers from 0 to 20. So if the user has pressed enter key and the value that has been typed in is equal to the length of this line here, then I would say result dot value is equal to 2 tick symbols. The tick key is available on top of the tab button on the left hand side of the keyboard, and 2 tick symbols, very tiny. They look like single quotations, but they are not. And I will say a dollar symbol, an opening curly bracket and a closing curly bracket, and I will say result dot value, and then we want to display this centimeter symbol, and for the moment I will also say correct. If I save it, maximize it, refresh it, type in an answer 13 in this case, so we have this message that is displayed within the input field. It says 13. The centimeter has been appended automatically, and this correct message has also been displayed within the input field. However, field can still be modified, so user can get rid of everything and type in a new answer. And we want to disable this field once the user has provided an answer. So I'll change the size of my browser one more time, and I will say result disabled is equal to true. Now this line of code will disable this input field once an answer has been provided. So if I save it and maximize it and refresh it, type in an answer 6 centimeter in this case, disabled. Okay, so there was a typo, so I will change the size of my browser one more time, refresh it, type in an answer 1 centimeter. If I press enter, the field is now disabled. So this was just only in case when the user types in a correct answer. Okay, so what happens if the user types in a wrong answer? So I will say else, and an opening curly bracket and a closing curly bracket, and then I will copy this line of code and paste it here, and this time I will say if e key code is equal to 13, means if the enter key has been pressed and the result dot value is not equal to, okay, so exclamation mark in is equal to, it means it is not equal to the length of this line, then I will say wrong, and I will still disable the input field. So if I save it, maximize it, and refresh it, I will type in a wrong answer, 7 for example, and it says wrong, and the field is now disabled. So the next thing is to make sure that the cursor, after we have provided an answer and the enter key has been pressed, the cursor should appear in this input field. So it has disappeared now. So I will change the size of my browser one more time, and I will say before this event listener, I will say result set attribute, and I will say tab index and comma, and then I want the tab index value of these input elements to be equal to this variable. So I will say I here, okay. So I is part of this for loop, initial value 0. So when the loop runs first time, the tab index value of 0 will be assigned to this. When the loop runs second time, the tab index value of 1 will be assigned to this, and then 2, 3, and 4, and we can check that. So I will say console.log result, and if I save it now, maximize this, refresh this, press F12, you'll notice that the input fields now have a tab index value. Each input field has a different tab index value. So if I if I minimize this, just keep an eye on these input fields as I move my cursor over these lines, okay. So this input field, this one has a tab index value of 0, this one has a value of 1, 2, 3, and then the last one has a value of 4. So 5 input fields. First input field has a tab index value of 0, and the last one has a tab index value of 4. So now that we have some way of identifying these input fields, we can target them to change the movement of the cursor. So I will come out of this, just outside this document dot query selector, and this time instead of using the input field directly, I will use the tab index value. So parentheses, and then tick symbols one more time, and then square brackets, opening and closing one, and I will say tab index is equal to double quotations, dollar symbol, and opening and closing curly bracket, and I will say I plus 1, okay. So the initial value of I is 0, and the tab index value of 0 is assigned to the first input field, which is this one, but we have already taken care of this input field with the help of this line of code. Notice that this line of code is outside the for loop, okay. So when the script runs, this line of code will be actioned, and then we go into this for loop, and the cursor does not come out of this bracket until the loop has run 5 times. So the second time, the tab index value should be 1, not 0. So that's why I have added 1 here. So the second time loop runs, the value of I will be 1, the tab index value will become 2. And then at the end, I have to use this focus method, and if I save it and maximize it, refresh it, type in an answer, 9 centimeter in this case, 9, enter, and the cursor has moved into the next input field. If I type in a wrong answer, in this case, for example, 7, it does say wrong, the input field has become disabled, and the cursor has moved into the next input field. So in the next lesson, we would like to display a tick symbol as it is visible here in these on these scripts. So if I type in 1, 2, 3, for example, in this one, and press enter, we have a tick symbol displaying here, but this is a simpler version. So I will display a tick symbol within this input field in the next lesson. So thank you very much, and I hope you learned something. I will see you in the next lesson. Bye.